Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Burnrate Baristas. I'm Sahan.
And I'm Kate.
And today we're talking all things CX.
Sounds good.
So
My wheelhouse.
Yeah. This is your terrain. So you just got back from the DR.
Yep.
What were you doing over there?
Woo. All right. So forgive me. I'm very tired. I've been up since about 2 a.m. because I literally just got back from the DR, came from the airport to here, our office.
Perfect timing to record an episode.
Yeah. Well, it's good because I was actually in the DR for filming. I'm part of something called CX Bootcamp. It's essentially like CX masterclass. So they flew in a bunch of people from around the world to talk about different things. But it's actually not my first time in the DR. We actually work with a BPO, stands for Business Process Outsourcing, located in Santo Domingo in the DR, who generously lent us their offices for filming. It was such a legit setup.
Oh, so you're coming from one filming to another.
I am. So okay. I feel like this is actually good. It's like letting me do a little bit less context switching.
Okay. So we're staying right in a safe space here. Talk to us a little bit about what CX, well, let me rephrase this.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about the process in which how you approach CX, also how it's evolved since its infancy. So what does that look like from not just SOPs, but like organizational design, process design, everything?
Yeah, I mean, I guess as a point of reference, I was the second hire here, and I think it says a lot to how seriously we approach CX that you brought in somebody for CX that early on. I think at that point, you probably could have continued without it, but it would have, done the brand a disservice, right? So I came in, I was
I don't mean to interrupt, but can you say most of the time, when do you see brands bring in somebody specifically for CX?
Usually when the volume is too high for the founder, whomever else is there to handle.
Got it.
Yeah.
Is that like around a certain amount of headcount or?
Not necessarily. I think it depends on the other roles in the brand and how many things are on their plates. Because I think a lot of times CX is treated as an afterthought, and it's just almost like a necessary evil, and everybody just jumps into the inbox or picks up the phone in some cases until they just don't have the time to anymore. And that'll generally happen as your customer base grows as opposed to your number of employees.
So it's just when you get inundated with tickets.
Yeah, when you just don't have time to do it anymore. You're like, oh, we have to probably bring in somebody to handle this. But even the way that's approached varies a lot, brand by brand. I mean, some people will just bring in like somebody straight out of college to answer emails versus what you did was to bring in somebody to build out a true strategy and actually make it a core part of the business, especially, a product like ours. When I came in, we only had the O1 in market, our first generation machine. But, from the time you interviewed me, it was always the plan to build a second generation that was truly ours. So I think if you're planning to do something like that, you need to have somebody focused on community input, or you're leaving so much on the table.
Totally. And we, from the very beginning, were like working on mapping out the whole journey. I still vividly remember this whiteboard session with Kate where it was like this beautiful mind moment, which is like crazy.
Oh my God.
I think we still have a photo of it somewhere.
We should put the photo in the video. We'll send that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I have it.
Yeah, the stream of consciousness, like Charlie Day, Always Sunny moment of just like all the threads connecting.
Yes.
But so tell our viewers a little bit about how you actually approached that process. Like what was setting up the infrastructure? Because nothing existed. When you joined.
Nothing existed. When I joined, we were operating out of just the Gmail inbox. The phone was our cell phones. If I was awake, phones were on 365 days a year. It's how we handled it. No, but I think when I joined, I first had to just
work-life balance. Hashtag work-life balance.
Yeah, totally. I'm so good at that, right?
Yeah.
No, but I think the first step was really to get a lay of the land, and that's why I kind of mapped it out the way I did. I just wanted to understand from the time a person discovered our brand all the way through, their deliberation, their purchase, their after sales support, all the way down to, hopefully loyalty and retention, or, less optimistically, or refund. Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah.
Because I think from that point, you can get a sense of what it looks like at every point, which illuminates the gaps that you need to fill. Right. So out of that, this was originally literally a whiteboard covered in text that I think I eventually turned into a very messy slide that you said, we cannot show this to investors. And I agreed with you. But out of that just came, at this point, countless projects of ways to to really build what the brand experience was going to feel like and make sure it was consistent across all touch points.
Did you feel like you did that? Did you feel like you built out all of those pillars of the CX journey that the way you wanted it to? Like, how did that look over time as we grew?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's changed so much, right? Because once, yes, there's like the support section of CX, which is generally within my control, but virtually everything outside of that is cross-functional, right? Like I'm going to be working with the marketing team or the product team or the operations team.
Yeah.
So certain things are very quick to change. Like anything in the support world, if I want to change platforms, which we did, or I want to, play around with different macros, that's very easy, and I can do that very quickly. But something like changing operational processes or streamlining after sales, or even ensuring that what we're representing to prospective customers and marketing matches what people say about the brand once they've experienced it, that all takes a lot more time because you just need buy-in from so many different places.
And the interesting question I have, because you paint this picture of both mapping everything out, building it over time, working with all the other departments, and then also responding to what you're hearing live. Sometimes that's fire drills, sometimes that's opportunities. What percentage of your role over the entire life cycle that you've been doing it do you find is reactive versus proactive, reactionary versus like forward looking?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the beginning, we just had so much volume coming in, and it was just me. So it was probably 95% me just like triaging customer experiences versus 5% actually zooming out and trying to optimize different parts of the strategy. I think over time, though, that's evolved as we've staffed up, number one, and we can get into what that's looked like. But
I want to get into that.
So that, of course, like gave me a lot of time back to actually change things, build out loyalty programs or work with product development on what we're going to build next and what that should look like, or even like soliciting feedback and having the time and mental space to be able to look at it and read it and understand it.
Yeah.
And also
there's very little passive time to just
and I would say I've gotten more passive time over the years, but also the role has changed over the years, right? Where like when I first joined, it was straight up just like interacting with customers. If I was awake, that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Versus over time, I think we from the very beginning have built CX as a pillar of this brand. I mean, it quite literally is, right? It's community and product, and those are the strategic anchors of Terra Cafe.
Yeah.
But I think that the challenges change, and I still definitely don't have as much passive time as I'd like. But I mean, who does, right? We're running this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. See, earlier, work-life balance.
Yeah. Exactly.
So much balance. Okay. So you mentioned organizational design. How has the org evolved over time?
Well, that's changed a lot, both the way that we're staffed by actual humans and also the technology we use. Originally, I'd say for the first 3-ish years, CX was entirely in-house. We were just growing the team. I think at max, we had 8 CX seats in-house.
Yeah.
And this was also before the widespread use of AI. So, I think it worked well in that at that point in time, we were very focused on getting as much feedback from customers to feed into the design and development of the TK2.
Yeah.
But it's tough, right? Especially we're headquartered in New York. All of our staff was in person. At a certain point, it's just really not scalable from a financial perspective to continue hiring people in New York full time. And the other thing that you run into is that I think a lot of people don't necessarily want to stay as frontline supports as a career.
Yeah.
They want to transition out of it. And with a product like ours, which is very complex, with processes like ours, which are also complex, it became tricky over time. So we
keep investing into the person, and then when they finally get their CLX and they are moving quickly, then all of a sudden you get hit with a curveball.
Exactly. So we definitely faced some of that, but I think 2 things really changed very close together. One was the advent of CX tools utilizing generative AI.
Yeah.
We were extremely early adopters of that technology. We've been using it in earnest now for 2 years, which is pretty unusual, I think, especially at a brand of our stage. So we utilize that deeply, and I think that kind of put a pause on needing to grow
from a headcount
perspective for a very short time. But again, going back to how complicated our processes are, a lot of that isn't even still at the point where it can be completely automated. You still need human touch.
Yeah.
So much of what my team does is based on visual and audio diagnostics of literally like what a machine is doing. And AI, I'm sure we'll get to that point, but AI is not there yet. So at a lot of points, you really do still need human involvement. So what we did about 1.5 years ago was transform the way the org was designed within CX, and we moved to an outsourced model. And I had been historically pretty opposed to going that route in the early days. I did a lot of due diligence looking at different outsourced providers. You find them all over the world. And I wasn't very impressed, frankly. It was a lot of just like, I'd hear from people and they'd be like, oh yeah, we can answer tons of inquiries about like, where's my order? I'm like, that's not what we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
But I think the industry has evolved, and technology is a huge part of that. And we ended up partnering with a company called Horatio out of the Dominican Republic. And
great plug.
Yeah, right. Oh my God. No, they're fantastic. Reach out. I'm happy to nerd out over that. Siena AI, all of our partners. I'm a cheerleader. I'm a cheerleader at heart. But yeah, so once I spoke to them, there were a few key differentiators. One was that their agents were 100% assigned to us. They weren't,
floating across
multiple brands. And they also have a very strong emphasis on quality of life for their agents, which results in less turnover. And that's really important, for a brand like ours with our product. We've calculated it takes from the moment of hire to the moment of like functioning at full capacity. It's about a 14-week cycle. Yeah. So we literally cannot afford constant turnover. The on-ramp is too long, too steep. It becomes horribly inefficient. But yeah, so now our model is a combination of outsourced support and AI.
Right.
We do have a couple of technical CX people still in-house, but at this point, one of them has moved over to the marketing org. One of them has moved over to the ops org. Yeah. It's my favorite thing that happens in brands. You take people that have really come up the ranks in the CX part of the house and move them elsewhere, because then I feel like I have sleeper agents. I feel like you have people, especially in a brand like ours, largely D2C, who really understand the customer journey, and they can be the voice in the room for other parts of the business. And it's such a strategic advantage over a lot of our competitors, who are not, from what we can tell, looking at CX that way.
And if I can just take a second to give you a shout out on that regard, like truly one of the best I've ever seen in terms of growing a team and like up leveling or leveling up the team to be able to not just do their job really well, but to understand the full spectrum of the implications of their work. Meaning, if you're focusing on the CX side of things, understand how it impacts other stakeholders, other departments. Basically, just understanding the 360-degree spectrum of what it takes to run a company, and then integrating that into their learning, which inadvertently, almost ironically, puts you in a tricky situation, because then they get so enamored and excited about understanding the bigger picture that they want to get more involved in other aspects of the business. But truly one of the most impressive and one of the, easily just the best track record in terms of growing individuals in an organization. That said, would it be safe to say that the way that you approach this evolution of the organizational design and all of the resourcing and software tools, what have you, that we use, is the North Star is effectively always, how do we service, engage, and mobilize our community as best as possible?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
When we had it all in-house, we also benefited a lot, not just from, sitting around each other where you can grow individuals and train them on the products, but also being able to have long conversations with customers and learn a lot in their early days, especially about what they like, what they don't like, what we want to layer into our product development process, what we want to layer into our marketing. Like, that was valuable, but it was also what every D2C e-commerce company was doing at the time.
Right.
And then I would say you were actually very much an early mover into a lot of the different software technologies and platforms that were more innovative, newer. I'm not just trying to butter you up. I'm not trying to flatter you, but I do feel like you were very quick and amenable. Even when you said you were initially resistant to the idea of working with a BPO, I still found that you were honestly, kind of first in line as far as testing things out, diligencing technologies, being like, okay, well, does this work? Does that work? What are the limitations? What are the boundary constraints of what this can do? And that could evolve over time. It's not necessarily the case that it'll always be like that, but layering that in to ultimately service our community as best as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think a huge part of my role is to make sure I'm on top of what's evolving in the industry, whether it's tools or structure or, whatever it is. Like, that is my role. Like, I have equity in this business, right? It is in my best interest and the business's best interest to ensure that we are staying on the cutting edge of what's available to us.
Right.
It's also what best serves our community. Technology does not move backwards. With AI, I think a lot of people, that's, just an example, a lot of people are resistant. They want to put up a lot of guardrails, but it's like, it's not going away. This isn't some like flash in the pan technology. It's just going to get more and more integrated into our daily lives. Like, if you know it's there, make it work for you. Make sure you're fluent in how to approach it.
And it goes back to the North Star. Even if customers would be resistant, it's like, if you think about like rewind the clock like 2 decades, right? Like how much people would get like frustrated with like, I'm stuck on the phone with an operator, like press 1 or say yes if you would like to continue in English, and you're like yes, and they're like, so you'd like to speak in Spanish? You're like, oh my god, I'm going crazy here, like, or you just get stuck in like a Mobius loop with some automated voice recording. Like, I think that's what people sometimes think it's like working with AI, but in reality, what we've found, and again, keep me honest here, but one of the insights, if I recall what Jake shared early on when he joined us, was it's the time to resolution that's the most important thing. And I'm sure that was, through what you two were working together on. But, I think you had him, again, in giving your team a platform to shine, like, sharing the finding, like the most important thing here is to get to the resolution as fast as possible. When in reality, even if people think they don't want to engage with, some sort of AI tool, it is the fastest path to get to the resolution, instead of waiting for another person to come, deal with each individual ticket, whether it's a very quick logistical response, like this is where this thing is, this is the timing of when it's going to arrive, versus something that maybe requires a more personal touch, like, hey, let's work through troubleshooting together.
Right. And it's still in our disclaimer, we're very open about the fact that we use AI in a multitude of places, and we always give people the option to opt out of that. But it's part of our disclaimer. You can opt out of interacting with AI, but be aware that our humans work at human speeds.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. This isn't 1995 anymore. We're working with some Sega Genesis dial operator. Like you have a lot of technology at your disposal, and basically trying to find the perfect, like, I guess like some kind of flow chart, but really ultimately you're just trying to find the fastest path to resolution for people. And it's going to be a mixture of tools and resources and people, not monolithically one thing or the other. Okay, last 2 questions.
Okay.
First one is favorite thing and least favorite thing about the work that you do.
Ooh, okay. My favorite thing about the work that I do, oh my God, now I'm going to sound like I'm sucking up to you. But it's from the very beginning, being given a platform to amplify the customer voice in every single business decision that's made. I think it's a huge competitive advantage for us, and it works, you know, and I think that there are a lot of brands that don't do that. They treat CX like it's a cost center, necessary evil. But it's like, if you're selling products to customers, you should probably give a shit about what customers are saying. Doesn't mean that you always give them what you want, what they want. It's impossible and, financially irresponsible, and also just not even in the customer's best interest a lot of times. But you have to at least be aware of how the decisions that we're making are going to affect our community, because that has massive ripple effects from everything from, public sentiment to return rates.
Can I ask a one sub-A question to that one?
Of course.
So for the record, you report directly to me. So you're a CXO, and we've worked with that, essentially with that paradigm, I would say from the beginning, if I'm not mistaken. I have heard from a number of CX leaders that they operate underneath like a COO or a CFO or something like that. Obviously, you have a much, deeper knowledge and breadth of, sample size of different CX teams. Why is it typically structured that way? And would you encourage other leaders, be it CEOs, founder CEOs, what have you, would you encourage them to rethink that organizational structure?
Oh, I love that question. I think the way it's typically structured is antiquated. I think that there are a lot of structures built on this outdated paradigm where, like I said, CX is a cost center. It's a necessary evil. It's an afterthought. You know, your product is your product. Your community is not going to have much of a say in that. And I think that actually does work for some products.
Okay. Can you say what kind of products or what kind of categories?
I mean, anything really that's not high touch, like something like us, right? It's an emotionally resonant product. People are using it day in, day out. Their opinions are going to drive in some way what we build next, whether it's a firmware update or a brand new machine.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that there are certain products where maybe it just isn't that important. You think of something that's set it and forget it. You get a new water heater in your basement.
Right.
Cool. You know, it's probably not going to drive these super passionate responses unless it breaks horribly and floods, whatever. So I think in those orgs, you can kind of do it that way. I think in this day and age, especially in startups, especially in D2C, we are held to an incredibly high standard, not just us, but companies similarly situated. We are taking on brands that have hundreds of years of legacy where, you know, their consumer bases are used to very specific ways of operating.
Right.
We have a magnifying glass on us. And I think is a D2C brand like prone to a little bit more kind of just online chatter? Yes, absolutely. That's where people are encountering you. You know, if somebody's buying from us, they have an issue, they're coming to us, versus if somebody's buying something from Costco or Walmart, they're going to go to Costco and Walmart. You know, they're not going to go to that brand. So I think, you know, for a brand like ours, we want to, really just do public relations management on the internet.
Yeah.
And I think in those cases, it is critical for customer and community experience to be part of the, you know, the strategic vision. Yeah, for everything, because the ramifications are so much more significant.
Okay, so I appreciate you going with the 1 sub-8 question.
Yeah.
But just to round out the first question, was your favorite thing is just the involvement, engagement, and kind of position or vantage point in terms of strategic decision making within the organization since the beginning. Least favorite thing of the job?
People who don't understand how business works, customers. And I mean, that takes on a variety of forms, but you know, as an example, right? We recently had a customer ask, can I make the text on the machine screen larger? It doesn't seem like it would be that complicated. And I'm like, you don't know what that actually entails. I mean, it's the same. You know, I could give you a million examples. Somebody whose order has already shipped and they're like, oh, can you include this other thing? And I'm like, no, it's literally already shipped, you know, and it just kind of trickles down. And I think
sometimes change your HMI board to have a better graphics card and short-term processing memory and having variations and toggles for every subcategory.
And I
make
think
it easy to access.
And it's not necessarily the consumer's fault. Like we talk about the Amazonification of everything, and you know, this behemoth of an organization making people think that overnight delivery is completely reasonable for any organization.
Same day delivery.
Yeah. Or, you know,
not waiting all night.
returns where you don't even have to send anything back. And I think it's created just kind of these false expectations and a false understanding of what the average business can do. But they're assuming we have the same economies of scale as something like Amazon or Walmart or Costco or even Target. So that gets tricky, right? Especially when people are like, well, your customer service sucks because you can't give me a brand new machine after 5 years. And I'm like, well, you're right. We can't do that. But, you know, they don't want to get a lesson in business. They just want what they want. And
fair enough.
Yeah. So that I think is the least favorite.
Second question. I love that. I said I have 2 last questions and I've asked like 15 questions.
I love it.
Okay, last question. Guidance or advice for anybody starting out within the CX capacity at a new brand or a growing brand, like building all that infrastructure, any kind of guiding lights, North Stars for them to take into consideration when they're, you know, just beginning that journey?
Yeah. There are definitely going to be things that are table stakes, and that's going to be anything on the support side of the house, but take every single spare moment developing feedback and mechanisms and servicing them to or serving them rather, to the rest of the company. Help people see early and often the value of incorporating community insights into everything. And that can start really small. Every CRM platform has a CSAT, like enable comments for that. Look at them, use ChatGPT to synthesize them. I think that's something that has evolved so much, is just the amount of qualitative feedback we can now turn quantitative because of generative AI. But yeah, I mean, do the table stakes stuff, do the, hit your SLAs, but then ensure the rest of your org sees the value of listening to your community. Make it obvious, make it easy, send them weekly reports. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't need a seat in a board meeting, but start early and often serving up those insights.
Beautiful. All right. I think that just about covers it.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks for watching.
Thanks so much.
See you next time.
See you soon.